Okay, we are live, but we'll let it breathe just for a few moments here while we bring on our community in its entirety, including Facebook, including Instagram. Very important to the conversation. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Mile High Huddle podcast, the aftermath episode. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, much of our conversation yesterday and the gut reaction dwelled upon the status and outlook of injured cornerback Pat Surtain, but all of the signs today are pointing in a good direction. I had a story early. You just had a further update breakdown for everybody who's been maybe on pins and needles about where things stand with CB1.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best case scenario. It's not a high ankle sprain. As you wrote earlier, it's an ankle sprain that's minor, according to NFL Network. Sounds like a low ankle. The Broncos released an estimated practice report today because they play Thursday. They didn't actually practice, but if they did, Pat Surtain was listed as a full participant. He also had a charity event today, and he said the ankle is feeling better. He's taking it day by day. So I don't know if he'll play Thursday, Chad, but it sounds like he's not going to miss much more time after that.
I have now a good feeling that he will play Thursday unless Sean Payton is trying to pull some like 4D chess or something on the Chargers, which I don't see. I just don't see it. Sean Payton, and like we talked about yesterday on the live stream on the Gut Reaction Pod, they've been abundantly cautious with player injuries and almost stubbornly so, especially as it relates to Sean Payton's reluctance to say word one. I mean, if he had it his way, there wouldn't be such thing as injury reports. Nothing would ever get talked about relative to player injuries. But the fact that, yes, okay, the caveat here is they didn't actually practice. So it's what is called an estimated practice report, meaning the Broncos, even though they didn't practice by rule, they have to submit a practice report estimating what injured players would have, at what level they would have participated. Okay. They put Surtain as a full estimation. To me, Zach, that points not conclusively, but as a harbinger, I'm feeling a lot better about him being available Thursday night. Papa Bear, what's good, bro? Excellent to see you tonight. Hope you're doing well this Monday evening. He says, good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 10 and 7 plus. God bless the USA. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life. Buckham times 3. Denver Broncos for life. Knicks for 6. Whoo! SEAL team Knicks. And by the way, David, props to you, because remember that little kerfuffle we had on the gut reaction following the meet and greet game, right? The Steelers game where we kind of got our wires crossed. And I don't disagree with you that some of the guys in the room that we were streaming from on the gut reaction were somewhat dismissive to the notion. I think at the time you were still holding on to, was it 10 and 7? Might have been 12 and 5. I don't know. But now look at you. Who looks like the genius amongst us? It's you. Papa Bear still holding true, holding solid at that 10 and 7. And the plus, of course, means we're going to the playoffs, and it might end up being the 12 and 5. Time will tell. Taylor Christensen, what's up, brother? Great to see you. Thank you, pal. He says PS2 is okay. I also I rewatched your 2021 draft reaction. Are you glad we passed on Justin Fields? I definitely am, especially PS2 being a defensive player of the year candidate. Pardon me, Zach, your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak for myself, but I never wanted Fields. I was happy with Pat Surtain. I really wanted Micah Parsons. I was one of the few who was willing to overlook the baggage and the character concerns supposedly with Micah coming out of college. That's who I wanted, but under no circumstance did I want Fields. And every year that goes by, George Payton is more vindicated for passing on him.
I still look. There's always an exception that proves the rule, but I still. And even then, if you did watch the draft reaction, I'm sure it was mentioned by yours truly at least once, Taylor. I don't trust Ohio State quarterbacks at the next level. So I was never in on Justin Fields. And going into 2021, yeah, we were coming off of a wild roller coaster where entering 20, we were stoked. Drew Lock came in, second round pick as a rookie, goes 4-1. we have a wild off season with the whole pandemic, but still we were optimistic about the direction the team was headed with Drew. And then, of course, he gets hurt in week 2. That season goes to crap. He's never quite the same from then on out. Fangio loses faith. The rest is history. But when you get to the 2021 draft, Zach, my memory, and, hey, sometimes I can't even remember what I have for breakfast. So for what it's worth, was I wanted the Broncos to hold on at least one more year with Drew Lock because it could have been a fluke. There was a lot of things that cut against him. He lost his number one receiver, a lot of different things. So I was actually happy from what I can recall about the PS2 thing. And I remember you, Zach, like you mentioned, being really stoked or really in on Micah Parsons. But PS2, I don't think he's a bona fide defensive player of the year candidate this year anymore in terms of probabilities. Not that I don't feel that he's worthy, but that 2 games, Zach, that he lost because the concussion really took the wind out of his sails. Yep. 4 interceptions. He's tied a single season career high. That was his rookie season. Not quite enough prolific production, in my opinion, to expect the voting to put him over the top. But Nik Bonitto, now this is a guy, Zach, who's got momentum.
Yes, sir. I mean, the Broncos have 2 of the 3 defensive player of the year candidates, the other one being TJ Watt. I don't know if they're going to win it, but just that they're in the conversation, 2 players on the same team, Chad, is pretty cool. And just to put a bow on the last conversation, I'll raise my hand about Drew Lock. I think we were both, I don't know about wrong, but maybe misguided on our take as a franchise quarterback. I was always out on Fields. The only debate we can really have goes back to 2018 when the Broncos passed on Josh Allen to take Bradley Chubb. But then again, and looking back in hindsight, I don't think Josh Allen would have been Josh Allen if the Broncos drafted him back then.
Yeah, because he would have got who would he have gotten? Who was it in 18? Was it
Musgrave?
Musgrave and VJ. That's right. I was trying to remember who his OC was. Maybe he was dynamic enough and resilient enough with that talent that he could have withstood it. But VJ probably still would. And remember, Allen took a little time getting his NFL feet beneath him, but I still don't think it would have been enough to preclude the Broncos from firing VJ after that season. And then what? You're going to saddle Allen with Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur? I agree. It probably doesn't work out the same way for Allen, but still, even the Duke of Denver himself is on record. One of his biggest regrets as Broncos GM, and he admitted this, was passing on Josh Allen in the 2018 draft. Sam Bam, and to his defense too, they had just thrown a few bucks at Case Keenum, and they were still holding on to the hope that Paxton Lynch could be something. And it was only 4 months after that conclusively the Broncos realized Lynch ain't ever going to be anything, and they cut him before that third season even started. Sam Bam, what is good, brother? Thank you. This evening, guys. I said the Broncos would go 9-8 and flirt with the playoffs during the preseason, and I'm happy they've achieved both with 3 games to go. Looking forward to whooping the Chargers Thursday night. Go Broncos. Yeah, good for you, brother. I remember that. And, this is going back to what David's season-long predictions is gosh, maybe they lose one more game, but they're playing like their hair's on fire. And I mean that in a good way. Even when things weren't going well, they've battled back and then some. I mean, with authority. The Colts, they're not a great team, Zach, but they're fighting for their lives, and there's a lot of talent on that team. And the Broncos, by the time it was all said and done, it was such an overwhelming fourth quarter that you realized, any given Sunday and all that stuff, but the Broncos are leaps and bounds beyond the Colts.
And we said this yesterday, we'll say it again. They didn't just squeak by him. It was an ugly win, Chad, but it was a pretty resounding win in the second half when you go and go up by 3 possessions, 18 points. But Sam, they have to close it out Thursday night. I don't want to back into the playoffs. I don't want other teams to help like Miami or Cincinnati. I want to go to LA in a primetime game and put a whooping on Herbert and the Chargers and really stamp their ticket with authority to the postseason.
I mean, honestly, the only ugly aspect of the game was Nix's 3 picks, dude. I mean, truly ugly. We can lament the lack of a run game, but that's been a theme throughout the season. The only thing that was like truly ugly was the trio of picks from Bo, and yet he still bounced back, performed in the clutch, delivered those 2 second-half touchdown passes, and he stayed aggressive. He didn't go into a shell like a lot of rookies on a 3-interception game would have. He kept going down the field, and it was just one of those games where it was out of sync for the most part with the receivers, even though he did strike gold on that 20-yarder to Cortland Sutton. Zeus, what is good, big dog?
Thank
So
you,
great to
Stu.
see you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the very generous top rope super chat, big dog. Much love. The first face, as we say here, I see the first and the second faces etched on the MHH super chat superstar Mount Rushmore in the chat with super chats right now. Stu, hi all. What a crazy game. I was fortunate to watch it live. Sick. The fans were amazing. Love my Broncos. Tough win, but they found a way to get it done. I bet it was absolutely like thermonuclear when Bonito picked off that backward pass. I bet it was insane in that stadium.
Yeah, it sounded pretty electric, Stu. And you know what I said to myself yesterday, Chad? I said, why couldn't the week 2 game that we were at have been like that? We got the most boring display of offensive football known to man, but yesterday the Broncos had this come from behind topsy-turvy victory. Stu, I'm happy for you that you were there to see it live and got a much-needed Broncos win, brought it home.
All right, guys, we got to pause here for just a second, and then we're going to dive right back into the chat because we got to remind you about our friends over at Underdog. Underdog is the place to play if you are a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players, compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
And with their champs game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, will Bo Nix have higher or lower than 237.5 passing yards next week? Will Nix have higher or lower than 1.5 passing touchdowns? Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
Gotta love that safety net. Download the Underdog app today. Use code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown. Just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concern with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right. We have here, let me just get the, there we go. Ted Wunderlich in the house. What's going on, bro? 2 nights in a row. Love it. Says Bo's perseverance is spreading to the whole team. There's no more here we go again when something goes wrong. They just win anyway. Hashtag MHH for life. So true. I was writing about that today, analyzing what Sean Payton said today about the just overall how Bo Nix comported himself in the face of 3 interceptions. And I want to read some of it really fast here. I think it's edifying and informative. He said, quote, "This is a tough league sometimes. I felt afterwards something like that happens with the adversity early on. I get frustrated at myself. Am I giving him the right looks, the right plays? Then later in the game when we needed it, he didn't flinch. There's a maturity and a moxie about him, which I love. I think it's contagious to the team. When you have that at the quarterback position, your team knows you're in every game. When you don't have it, it's pretty difficult because deep down in their belly, they know that's not the case. That's something you notice with this year, especially with this team," close quote. And Zach, we have been around long enough post Super Bowl 50, wandering the QB desert to know the truth and veracity of what Sean Payton said today. And it's really encouraging to know. I mean, I think we could see that in how the Broncos responded and kind of closed ranks around Bo. but man, it's awesome. Then we'll grab Michaela.
Yeah, I also love how Bo owned up to the interceptions he threw yesterday. He was asked something along the lines of, do you get on your receivers for dropping passes when you're throwing picks? And he goes, no, I'd feel like a loser if I did that. Then he went in and described what it's like to have a game like that and to be resilient and bounce back. So the maturity's off the charts, Chad, but we knew that for months now. The guy is wise beyond his years football-wise.
And it was an absolutely not. Do you get after your receivers when they drop passes? Absolutely not, which was interesting. The Duchess, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Michaela.
Love you so much in all of your awesome ways. You are the best, my friend. She says, I was shocked when the Broncos drafted Nik Bonitto. I thought he was a project. At best, I'm eating very delicious crow. Our pretty fish, Bonito, equal fish related to the Bonito, equal fish related to the tuna, also means pretty in Spanish. Right. When the Bonito run, from Step Brothers. Have you ever been down on the da-da-da when the Bonito fish run? And Will Ferrell's character is like, what are the Bonito? Remember, you know what I'm talking about? Am I alone in this? Oh, and will Nix work out? So much for OROY side. I wouldn't give up on OROY quite yet, my friend, because Washington, they're pretty much trending. Hold on, look. Let me see. I'm going to go to the playoff picture real quick. I mean, it's looking like stand by. It's loading here. Okay. So as it stands, you've got the Commanders sitting in the 7th seed. They have an equal record to the Broncos at 9-5 in the NFC. And so I would tell you, we've been saying this for a minute, that Bo Nix has to not just be a little bit better than Jaden Daniels to win OROY, but quite a bit better. And Zach, he still has the most touchdown passes among all rookie quarterbacks, the most total touchdowns. He's got 25 total touchdowns from scrimmage, 20 passing, 4 rushing, 1 receiving. His touchdown to interception ratio, even in the wake of the 3 interception game, is still healthy, 20-11, still very healthy. It's basically a 2-to-1 ratio. You live with that all day long, twice on Sunday. So there's still 3 games left to go. I'm not giving up on the possibility, but we shall see. Bo's got to really step it up and cut out those negative plays that, the absence, Zach, of the negative plays have been one of the hallmarks of him as a player, at Oregon and first part of, for most of this season.
I just feel like there's so much confirmation bias with both quarterbacks. Every time Jaden does something good, they celebrate it. Every time Bo throws a pick, they say, well, that's why he was the 6th quarterback taken. So I agree that with Michaela's premise is that Bo's going to have to do a little bit more, same as you said, Chad. And he has a primetime game coming up on Thursday. They're probably going to get flexed, according to Sean Payton, that Bengals game to Saturday a couple weeks from now. If he comes out in primetime and throws 3-4 touchdowns, he puts himself back in the race. But even if he doesn't win it, he's leading the Broncos to their first playoff berth in a decade. I think we all settle for that.
Indeed. Indeed. So, yeah, I'm stoked on Bonito. I was not thrilled with the Bonito pick either. Zach and I were sitting next to each other in Vegas at the draft when that pick came in. And we were both kind of like, really? Okay. And it feels good to be so wrong sometimes. Not that we were like saying he sucked. It was just that we were kind of surprised with some of the other options on the board at the time. We kind of thought maybe they could have done something different, but damn it, I'm glad they didn't, Zach. Phil, love you, big dog. I didn't quite grab Phil yet there. Scott, there he is. So great to see you. Good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. I really hope PS2 is good, but I would not pay him if there's any doubt. Play him, sorry. We need him more later, in my opinion. Hashtag Buckham MHH for life. Broncos for life. Well, that's what you can pretty much count on, Phil, with this team, with this coaching staff, I should say, is if there is a doubt, they won't play him. They will charge it to the game. They will shrug and say, look, if he's not a hundo, he's not playing. So I would rest assured on that. If he's out there, he's probably good to go.
You need him more for next week against the Bengals, who have 2 elite receivers, versus the Chargers on a short week, who they have one rookie slot guy who's kind of banged up right now. Put McMillian on him, whatever. Put Chris Abrams drain on him. Put Brandon Jones in bracket coverage. You can suffocate the Chargers passing attack without PS2. The Bengals next week, though, tougher test. I agree, Phil. If there's any doubt, if he's not 100%, I would hold him out.
We shall see. But the reporting again, Ian Rappaport, it's a minor injury. Typically, minor injuries don't keep players out from playing. The Ronk, what's up, bro? Good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Aftermath, go Bo Broncos. So great to see you. Feels good. And, speaking of Bo Broncos, another aspect to the Bo Nix resilience was, you look at the box score, it's really weird. It's one of the most just kind of bizarre looking box scores for a quarterback that you'll see. 22 of 30 for 130 yards. If you stopped there and I said, predict what the rest of that stat line is going to look like, you're going to go, maybe a touchdown and a pick, maybe a touchdown, 2 picks, maybe no touchdowns, no picks. But 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions was really weird. But what I loved about Bo Nix in the fourth quarter, Zach, and this is a big difference compared to like when we were there in the Steelers. If you recall, 2 interception game, one of which was bad after a turnover in the end zone. Yeah. Remember? You could kind of sense, I wouldn't necessarily say go into a shell per se, but you could see that his coach did. You could see that Payton was keeping him pretty hemmed in relative to the play calling and his kind of directives in his ear. That wasn't the case yesterday. We've come, it's been a long road to hoe, and Bo Nix has achieved it. He was throwing the ball downfield, dude, in the fourth quarter. And then finally, connected on one with Sutton there. I was really glad to see him get that last one. And it was like minute and 41 to go. I was like, whoa, step on their throats, coach.
It was a very weird game. It seemed like he didn't have much chemistry with Sutton or the other receivers. Vele, I mean, he threw some way off target passes, uncharacteristic of Bo. But you mentioned play calling, Chad, and that was what I felt in the first month of the season, that Sean Payton was doing Bo Nix a disservice. And then he kind of loosened things up and put more college concepts on his plate, and the Broncos offense played better. Yesterday, it seemed like they regressed right back to weeks 1 through 4, and you saw what happened there. So hopefully Sean Payton and Bo, for that matter, can learn from it.
Grover, so good to see you, brother. 2 days in a row as well. It says, evening, gents, still flying a mile high on last night's W. Can't wait for Thursday night. But any thoughts on Payton seemingly covering for Bo in his post-game presser? He took blame for 2 of the 3 picks. I mean, just that's kind of a theme of late. He did that also in following the Cleveland game. Zach even had an article on it, how Sean Payton said that picks were his fault, at least one of them. And that's a coach that's, in my opinion, trying to protect a rookie still kind of growing NFL shell, as it were. Like, it's good for, even though behind closed doors it might be a slightly different conversation or dynamic, it's good for Bo Nix to hear his coach publicly shouldering some of the blame. It helps him, I think, take his mind off of the possibility of lingering too long on the past and focusing on the future. And Zach, I still think one of the aspects here that it relates to his first 3 interception game is the bye. This was the first bye of his career, and he was on a heater. Even though he had those 2 picks, he had been on a freaking heater. And then you put the brakes on that, and you got to shut it down for 2 weeks. He's got to kind of realize how to keep that momentum as an NFL quarterback moving forward, and he'll learn.
Well, first of all, a coach is usually, unless your name is Russell Wilson, is going to cover for you and just, be a good coach and be a good
Drew Lock. Or Drew
Lock with Fangio. Good point. Yeah. The second aspect we have to consider too is that anything that Bo does is reflective directly on Sean Payton. Sean Payton handpicked him. Sean Payton was willing to knock on Bo Nix's door to draft him. It was a controversial pick because he made him a first-round quarterback, the 6th quarterback off the board. So Sean's ego, Sean's pride, and they're both tied together forever. So, of course, he's going to mitigate the poor game that Bo Nix had. It's kind of predictable in that sense.
Excellent point there. Sam Bam, again, thank you, brother. Says, I also have to eat my crow about the hiring of VJ when, if I recall correctly, there were better candidates for DC going into 2023. Vance Joseph has really made this a dominant defense since that 70-20 Week 3 Miami game last year. What I love about it is how productive it is and just predatory. It's not just getting after the quarterback, but what that leads to. And just the propensity the possibility, the air is just like electric with the possibility for takeaways because of how much pressure is just always on that quarterback. And then even when it's not necessarily pressure, like that one last night or yesterday, Zach, when Richards had not dumped it off, but completed kind of short to Michael Pittman, and then coming flying into the frame like a missile, PJ Locke, kaboom, pops that ball out. I mean, it's just that tenacity. It's very reminiscent to me. It's different, but so similar to me of just the vibe of the 2015 Broncos. And that was a team that finished with 52 sacks. The Broncos are going to easily eclipse that in 2024, Zach. So I'm glad too. We were all disappointed, frankly. I mean, how could you not be? This was a guy, Zach, that was one of the biggest modern coaching snafus for the Broncos, and you're going to bring him back. So, yeah, there was Rex Ryans. Who else was out there that they could have hired? I'm trying to think back, but I think ultimately Sean Payton, once again, he was right.
I don't know that dominant defenses allow 500 yards to Jameis Winston and allow Anthony Richardson to go down the field in the first half, but I do feel like they're dominant in the sense of forcing turnovers, creating sacks, causing chaos. But I wonder, is it VJ, who I've been given his flowers all season, or is it him finally having the talent, finally having the horses, having a shutdown cornerback, having an elite pass rusher, having a front four, front three that can just push the pocket, stop the run, get after the quarterback? You saw what the defense looked like last year, especially in crunch time. And they went on a little streak, but they weren't consistent. You see now when they upgraded the talent around VJ that they're being a lot better now. So I agree, Sam. I mean, he's gotten better as a coordinator, but you still see the warts come out every now and then.
Okay, I'm going to grab Keith here, and then what time is it? We've got a little time. If you guys want, since this is our last episode before Thursday night, the next time you'll see us is the gut reaction. We could do like a shortened version, since it is a short week, of the head-to-head and just kind of examine where these two teams are. But Keith, great to see you, bro. Thank you for the stars. Says, I'm starting to wonder, is it all three running backs or is it the scheme and this O-line? Thoughts? Let's go Broncos country. I don't think it's the O-line, dude. I think, and if you look at Sean Payton as a play caller and an offensive mind in New Orleans, he was mostly consistent with his run game. You'd have like sometimes it was Reggie Bush, sometimes it was Pierre Thomas, sometimes it was Darren Sproles. You have that, and it would change later. You get to 41. I just blanked on his name. Thank you, Alvin Kamara, who have been very prolific backs in the Sean Payton offense. And I would argue that this offensive line he's built, frankly, in Denver, is as good, if not better, than the best that the Saints had during the Drew Brees era. He has that here. I think it's more of a ball carrier thing. I just don't think they have a dude. Like the closest thing, because look, even though Sean Payton, Zach, last week was like, no, I think Jaleel could have a more expanded role. Like he could handle it. But he is 187 pounds. And I think Audric Estime is the closest thing we're going to get this season in terms of a possibility of a dude emerging. And it just doesn't seem like Sean Payton is willing to feed him like a bell cow. I think he's still a little bit concerned about the possibility for turnovers. So that's the big wart on this particular year, is the run game. And it's going to have some implications, Zach, in the playoffs.
I think you're spot on. It's a Sean Payton thing, rotating the running backs. And I don't think it's the O-line, because by all metrics, they're a top 5 OL in the NFL, especially in pass blocking. Here's the deal. We talked about VJ finally having the talent. They don't have the talent in the backfield. Who do you have? Javonte coming off major knee reconstruction surgery. McLaughlin was an undrafted free agent. Estime was a mid-round pick. You don't have that true blue chip guy like a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan Robinson. That's why, and for my money, the Broncos should go all out and get that guy this offseason.
That's right. And Scott's even reminded me too, Mark Ingram in New Orleans, couple of Heismans, right? You had Reggie, and that still, it bothers me that they took Reggie Bush's Heisman. I don't know why that gets to me, because, especially in the new landscape of NCAA and money and all that stuff. Anyway, that's beside the point. Ralph, what's up, brother? Good to see you tonight. Says, good afternoon, fellas. Just finished rewatching the game while not as intoxicated. LOL. Damn, we got that Mile High magic back. It would certainly seem so. Man, it was looking like our home field advantage thing was of a bygone era, but they have slowly reestablished it from basically the second quarter of the season on. What was the last home game they lost? I think the Chargers game is the last home game they lost, if memory serves. I could be off on that, but yeah, it's back, dude. That Mile High Magic.
They touted it as the biggest Broncos home game since the 2015 AFC title game, and it seemed like that in the second half, Chad. The energy, the electricity in the crowd, the Broncos storming back and having, taking a commanding victory. I'm truly happy for any Broncos fan that was there to witness it. It was great to watch on television.
All right, let's see. We're pretty much caught up on the stars and the supers, right, Scott? Let's just do a quick little. Let's have some fun. You guys want to do the head-to-head? I'm just taking a quick peep here. Yep. If Moss and PS2 are out, who starts at CB1 and 2? Honestly, they played Damari Mathis in base yesterday. And then Cad would come in, Abrams Drain on nickel. I bet you'd see basically Mathis at the 1 and Abrams Drain at the 2 and McMillan at the slot. That's probably what you'd see, but it's not looking like it's going to be that. I don't think, string guy. So anyway, all right, you guys know how it works. Green means top 10. Red means bottom 10. Black, somewhere in the middle. Your Denver Broncos have a 1-game lead over these here Los Angeles Chargers, 9-5, 8-6. The Broncos in the turnover margin are +5. That ties them for 9th, but the Chargers are even better. They're +11, which puts them at 4th. Time of possession, these teams are pretty dang close to each other, but technically the Broncos are in the bottom 10. And the biggest reason for that, once again, is this last game they regressed significantly on third down. They could not sustain drives, and that chipped away at their time of possession averages. But the Chargers, they're not much better. If we examine these two offenses, the Chargers are 27th in yards. They're 21st in points. They are 22nd in rushing, 25th in passing. Only 2 interceptions. Isn't that wild, Zach? This deep into the season, he's only been picked off twice. 6 fumbles lost. That's 10th fewest. And by the way, that's the fewest interceptions in the NFL, Chargers. That's the Harbaugh effect combined with that's just kind of the disposition of Justin Herbert. Total giveaways 8. That ties them for the 2nd fewest in the NFL. Sacks allowed, though. Look at this number here, Zach. Plays into the Broncos. 41 sacks. That's tied for the 23rd. Third down, they're 21st. Red zone, they're 16th. So middle of the pack in those two key metrics. The Broncos, 22nd in yards, 10th in points per game now. That's been helped with 14 points in the last 2 games, courtesy of the defense. But still, that's really nice to see, Zach, that the Broncos are a top 10 scoring team. Are you kidding me? What planet are we living on? It's a new era. But this pesky rushing thing persists. Only ranked 20th, but it's still better than the Chargers. 23rd in net passing. Again, yesterday's poor outing is drop that because that was not a red metric when we looked at this on Thursday going into the Colts game. 11 interceptions drops them. That's tied for 19th. 7 fumbles lost. That gives them 18. So 17. That ties them at 17th on giveaways. But Bo Nix, still hard to sack, dude. To quote Coach Payton, he's a tough sack. You could riff a lot of jokes off of that, but that's what he says. Okay. Third down, the Broncos are middle of the pack, 37%. And then red zone, they have really climbed in this department. They've gotten much better there. Zach, top 10.
I seem to recall a couple of years ago when under a certain coach, they couldn't score more than 15 or 16 points. So to see them average 24 now, and like you said, be a top 10 team, it's we've come a very long way. About the Chargers, I mean, we just talked about the Broncos last week. We'll get into the opponent a little bit. The Herbert had a streak that was snapped yesterday of almost 600 passes, I believe, or 500 and something without a pick, and he finally threw one. So he's playing efficient football, but he has no talent around him, including the offensive line. They used a top 10 pick on Joe Alt. It's not really helping there. Dobbins got hurt. They have Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal, I think his name is, not doing much in the running game. Herbert himself is also hobbled. So It's not as imposing, I think, as it was in the first matchup when they lost PS2 during the game.
Well said. Let's examine these two defenses because they're both very good. The Broncos are 8th in yards, 2nd in yards per play, 1st in points. What? Tied for 1st in points per game now, Zach. With, guess who? The Chargers. Wow. Net rushing, Broncos 5th. 14 picks, ties them for 4th most. 9 fumble recoveries, ties them for 6th most. 23 total takeaways, 6th most. Sacks, 49. That's the most in the NFL. They've been first now for basically 3 weeks, which is excellent. And then they're also 2nd in red zone, and they've done better on 3rd down. All right, you look at the Chargers, they allow more yards. They, again, tied with the Broncos for 1st in points. They allow more rushing yards, but fewer passing yards. They're the 9th ranked passing defense. Interceptions, they have the same number as the Broncos, so they are also a predatory unit, but only 5 fumble recoveries, gives them 19 total takeaways, tied for 11th, 40 sacks, so they get after the Q as well, guys. This is a top 10 pass rush. Middle of the pack right there with the Broncos on 3rd down, and then 1st, very similar, these defenses, Zach.
Yeah, two staples of a Jim Harbaugh team. They run the ball well and they play good defense. And I can't remember the defensive coordinator he took over. I think it was Jesse Minter, but they've been doing a terrific job there with that Chargers defense. But as you see, they're not infallible. You can definitely score on them. You can move the ball on them. And the Broncos are going to have their work cut out for them a little bit in what could be a field goal battle or a 4th quarter battle. But going back to the Broncos side, as much as I say VJ still has his warts, you can't disagree or can't hate on all that green you see there, Chad. So they're doing a really good job still.
Of the top metrics, only 2 are not in the top 10. That's the passing. And of course, let's not forget that this would be pretty sure a top 10 metric if you don't allow 497 to Jameis. You know, that's one of those things that kind of weights down the law of averages there. And then if there's anything that this showcases to me, room for improvement for the Broncos defensively is getting off the dadgum field on 3rd down a little more consistently, especially early in games. Both sides of the ball kind of have a penchant, Zach, for starting slow and then building up a head of steam. And as we inch closer to the playoffs, it would behoove the Broncos to reverse that trend. You talked about the field goals. Let's have a look here. Special teams, the Broncos rank 1st, thank you, Marvin Mims, in punt return average, and 9th in kickoff return coverage, so that's cool. 7th in field goal percentage, so he's been really consistent. Basically, you just take out the Chiefs game, and Will Lutz has been money in the bank. You look over here, the Chargers also do well returning on punts. Not so good in any of the other metrics except, Zach, field goal percentage. They're 93.5%, 2nd ranked. And then look here, the penalties committed. This is weird. 81 ranks them 10th. Broncos have 89. They're tied for 19th. There's another one of those little flaws, I think, that we've been finding here. But anyway, your thoughts on special teams overall?
Just like we've come a long way with the offense, come a long way on special teams as well after the Tom McMahons and the Brock Olivos and the Dwayne Stukeses of the world. I give Ben Kotwika all the credit for that side of the ball, and I'll echo you. God bless Marvin Mims Jr.
We check it over here just for fun and look at some of the stats here. So tackles, Jones still leads the way for the Broncos. He'll get into the triple digits. I'm guessing that Barton will as well. Moss would have. For a corner, that's wild, dude. Moss would have if he doesn't get hurt. Remember, when Moss got hurt, he was ranked 2nd on the team in tackles. And Barton has been a starter all year. So he'll end up over 100, and I'm happy about that. The Chargers, Henley's got 126. Derwin James might end up over 100. Sacks, though, you got their leader has 7.5. Bonito right there, 11.5. Cooper, 8. Coop's got to turn it on, Zach. There's only 3 games left to go to get to 10, to get those double digits. Interceptions, both teams are led by a guy with 4, and their second guy also has 3. And but the Broncos have 2 guys with 2, and then they have 7 players with 1. That's kind of remarkable. So that's 7, 8, 9 guys that picked off the pass for the Chargers. Yardage, this shows you right here. You shut down this cat McConkey, and we'll highlight what I want you to highlight here, Mr. Cursor. Anyway, and you're probably going to thwart them. Sutton inching closer. Come on, dude. That's, I think, partly, Zach, when you try to force it too much, you know, when you end up pressing it. And something tells me maybe yesterday, both Nix and Sutton were pressing a little bit, trying to feed him to break that 1,000-yard mark. You'll get there. Just let it happen. You still got 3 more games to go. 122 yards over 3 games. You can do that. Come on now. But Dobbins, 766. I mean, the rushing production for the Broncos is horrendous. And then passing, look at this. Bo Nix has more passing yards than Herbert. So there you have it. There's your head-to-head, Zach, for week 16.
Look at the discrepancy, though, in the Broncos' leading receiver and their second and third leading receiver. Look at the Chargers. That just proves that Bo Nix does not have enough weapons around him, and that's got to be the priority in the offseason, Chad.
Yes, and again, I think that as Bo Nix, just like we've seen this year, as he continues to grow, guys will elevate around him. But if you want to help increase the rate, Zach, at which that tide rises and Bo Nix being that tide, get him some ships that float a little easier, so to speak. You know, let's go build that nest. I mean, you look ahead, Zach, to 2025 and you get into the roster building phase. There are going to be some issues to handle on defense because DJ Jones will be a free agent. I'm trying to remember, was Malcolm Roach a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal?
Think 2.
I think so as well, if memory serves. Cody Barton, you're going to have to make a decision there. He was a 1-year deal. You got Alex Singleton coming back. I think it was a 1-year deal on Sternad too, wasn't it, to bring him back? Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but you're also going to have to you're just going to have some potential holes to fill on defense. But for the most part, Zach, that unit's going to stay intact because Moss is still young. McMillan, I think, is a restricted free agent. He'll be re-signed. Offense, this is one of those off seasons where the Broncos will have the resources, and it's just kind of pointing in that direction with where they're at on defense. They can really invest on that side of the ball and build the nest.
Yeah, you mentioned Riley Moss. I saw Richard Amalung is asking what's the status on Moss. He was listed as a DNP today, did not practice in the Broncos estimated practice report. They didn't actually practice, but if they did, he would have been a non-participant. Also listed as a DNP were John Franklin Myers and DJ Jones. Just want to throw that out there.
By the way, Roach was a 2-year. And I'm going to look here at Sternad. He was re-signed to a 1-year deal. So that's their starting linebacker duo. You can't bet on Alex Singleton coming back. I mean, I'm sure he will. Okay, don't get me wrong. But you coming off of an ACL and whatnot, he might need time. So the Broncos are going to have to probably get on that quick. I would guess that they'll probably try and throw some money at them pretty early. Nothing crazy because linebackers don't kill it anymore in the NFL on the financial market. But basically, once you handle those 2 guys, you know, you can even use one of your picks on one of your 3rd round picks, or pardon me, first 3 picks, not the first round, but you can have your eye on the defensive tackle class and find someone to kind of be the successor to DJ Jones, but you just probably won't see a huge impact in year 1. But they also, Zach, have the financial resources this time around to be more players in the free agent market. So it's just trending nicely for the Broncos, the way this thing's headed.
And they're going to have to pinch some pennies, too, to pay Nik Bonitto, who is not going to come cheap. They can open negotiations with him in the offseason, and I would recommend getting him signed as soon as possible.
Ralph, jumping in again, isn't Von Miller a free agent after this season? What are the chances we give him a 1-year deal to retire as a Bronco? Let me just double check. Von Miller contract, according to Over the Cap. Yeah, no, he's under contract with the Bills through 27. So I'm trying to find here. Let me see. Sometimes they have. All right. He signed a 6-year, $120 million contract with the Bills. So it was a 6-year deal. But starting, no, they would have quite a lot of dead money next year if they cut him. But 2026, they could start getting out of that contract with a little bit less. So I think he's going to be in Buffalo at least one more year if he chooses to keep playing.
Yeah, Scott stole my thought in the side chat. I would give him a 1-day deal maybe to retire as a Bronco. I wouldn't pay him for 1 year. I think Von, as much as we all love him, he is washed, and he needs to move on to the next chapter of his life.
So so it shows from over the cap, $15 million in dead money with a cap savings of $8 million. So what would that be, Scott? $7 million dead net? Is that how you would read that? Anyway, we'll see. It would be cool to see Vaughn come back and sign a 1-day contract to retire as a Bronco. I mean, he went on to win another Super Bowl with the Rams and all that, but he's a Bronco for life. He is a future Hall of Famer. He'll go in as a Bronco. But he's on a team that could win the Super Bowl this year. It wouldn't shock me if the Bills go all the way. The Chiefs, eventually that luck's going to run out, dude. They've been whistling past the graveyard week in, week out. It's one miracle after another. And eventually that luck runs out and they will get steamrolled, probably by the Bills at some point. And even a team like the Broncos, if the Chiefs catch the Broncos in the playoffs, that's not a team they want to face. That's just like, hey, man, we made it. Nothing to lose. Let's go. We almost beat your ass, on your turf.
Should have beat them.
Should have beat you. It was like the fluke. This is what I'm saying. It was the luck, the fortune and all that. But it'll be fun to see how it all shakes out.
And now Mahomes has that high ankle sprain too, so that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, the Broncos outplayed the Chiefs in that game at Kansas City. Some people forget that. They should have won that game. So I'm not scared of Kansas City if the Broncos meet them in the playoffs. I'm not scared of anyone, maybe except for Buffalo, that the Broncos can meet in the playoffs.
So, Phil, where was Broncos for breakfast this morning? Giving Scott the old guilt trip here. Actually, blame Nick, but don't really blame him. He is taking his young family and traveling back home to be with his family, basically crossing the fruited plain. And that trip to be there for the Christmas break. I don't know if I should even be. I don't know. But he's driving. Let's just put it that way. He's on the move, but they'll be back Wednesday, Phil. So hang tight, brother. Appreciate your patience. We always hate to disappoint our community, but it's that holiday season, and sometimes people have things going on. And this is one of those situations. So let me take a look here, Zach. I want to give Instagram some love here. We got Speed Demon. Let's see. Is Ladd McConkey going to play? Zach, have you seen the well, let me look at the practice report today.
He played through the injuries this week. I would assume so.
Let's see. McConkey's not even listed on the injury report today. So yeah, he'll play. And then let me see what else you got here. Next year we play the NFC East and the AFC South. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Speed Demon said YouTube was acting up for him, so he had to go to IG. Well, I'm dang glad we've begun to stream consistently on IG. The real Ronnie Chavez wants to know, will the Broncos win out? What do you think, Zach, on Instagram?
They could. It's 12-5 until it's not a possibility anymore. Let's see who you got left. The Chargers, beatable team. The playoffs are on the line, so the Broncos should be up for that game. The Bengals, who tough offense, but their defense, Chad, is so trash. I would expect the Broncos offense to have some sort of, I hope anyway, a coming out party and make that an even matchup. And the Chiefs in week 18, who are probably going to rest an injured Mahomes and the rest of the starters, having the top seed locked up more than likely, there's definitely a possibility they can win out and go 12-5, but 11-6 is also in the cards as well.
Indeed. I think probability wise, they're probably going to lose one more. I just hope it's not this week. Yeah. If you're going to lose one, lose to the Bengals on the road. Don't lose this one, because Not only is it AFC West and AFC West supremacy, but you can get even with the Chargers on the season and balance the Payton Harbaugh scales, the Nix Herbert scales. So I'm going to say I'll predict 2-1, and if they lose one more, it's like to the pesky Bengals, because I do think the Chiefs, Zach, they're going to be resting guys. And we got one more here from the Ronk. Then we're going to get to some shouts and whatnot, saying great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast aftermath. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, bro, for being with us and the support. As always, big dog. Don't leave, though, guys. We got a few messages for you. Hang tight.
Yeah, I see William Catalano saying everyone said Indy's D was trash too. I don't buy anything this late in the season. But on the pregame show on last Thursday, we said don't trust what the numbers say on paper. They're very well coached, and it's going to be a tougher matchup for Denver than most realize. But the Bengals, though, I love the coordinator, Lou Anarumo, but I don't know what happened this year. Anyway, that was another tremendous installment of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, and myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, 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 very important that you subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
That's right. A Mile High Sully. Oh, wait, one more here from the Duchess. The Chiefs will sit their starters, especially since Mahomes is hurt.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I predict. And even if it's not like majority starters, they're key guys that really move the needle. They'll be sitting down. I predict as well, Michaela. Thank you for one more super chat. You are the bomb. And by the way, on that topic, Marcus Lewis Henna checking in. Go Broncos. Love from UK. Great to see you, my friend. Checking in from across the pond, proving once again Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is, in fact, a state of being. Thank you, pal. Duchess, I just wanted to say, appreciate you going and watching the new Bridge the Gap video, leaving a comment. Guys, I see I've seen several superstars and members of the community over there dropping comments and liking the video, including Diamond J. Rattler. Many of you. I'm going to drop the link. Go check it out. Even if rock music is not your forte, go check it out. Give it a like. Leave a comment so I know it's you, and I'll give you some shouts on the show. But a special Mile High salute and a special shout out here to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight, like the Duchess, the Papa Bear David McElrath, Taylor Christensen, Sam Bam going off twice, Ted Wunderlich, Zeus McPeak going off the top rope, Phil McLaughlin, The Ronk, and I just want to give special shouts again to Michaela going off the top rope as well. Grover, we got Keith Brugman and his glorious beard in the hizzy. Thank you, pal. Ralph Bracegirdle, much love and respect, guys. Zach and I are off until the gut reaction Thursday night. Broncos Chargers it'll be a late night for us. Hopefully you'll join us. I'm sure you will. And we'll see how that particular throwdown shakes out. The Mile High Roundtable will be coming out Wednesday about lunchtime. So you'll have to wait till then to see our official predictions for that game. But I'll just leave you with this. I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling good about the Broncos outlook.
I am as well, partner. Have a great start to your week, everyone. We will see you. Oh, wow. We got Dale D-Dub.
Woo! The man. This is the man right here.
Thank you, Dale.
Late arrival, not even afraid of Buffalo. Doesn't mean we will win, but feel we can compete and win if we execute a well-designed game plan. The run game would have helped Bo in this game. It let Indy play for the pass with no reserve across the board. That's an excellent point. And we haven't talked a lot about that in our two conversations post-game so far, is how much Buffalo did not respect the run game. And so they could sell out to stop the pass, and it blew up in the Broncos' face. So that's an excellent point, my friend. And thank you for the super chat, Dale. 2 days in a row going off. Love you, big dog. Even the 11th hour, I'm glad we saw it before we clicked out of here. Appreciate you.
To illustrate that point, Javonte Williams, last 3 games, 6 carries, 15 yards, 4 carries, 1 yard, 8 carries, -2 yards. To have a rookie quarterback with no semblance of a running game and still be 9-5 and in the playoff picture officially now, it's pretty incredible. So a good point, Dale. Thank you so much. Peace to you as well. Have a great start to your week, everyone. We will see you Thursday night for the gut reaction. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.